I think this is a picture of my garden in the fall, and it's a work in progress because, as those of you who are avid gardeners know, it's never going to be perfect. There are changes every year. But I think I can say, though, with absolute certainty that no two gardens are the same. They may incorporate similar design ideas, but each garden is a reflection of the gardener's taste, their preferences, and their desires. So if you are interested in having a garden that's full of beautiful colors, we're going to head down that garden path to help you tap into your taste, preferences, and desires so that you can design a garden that is just perfect for you. And in our talk today, we're going to consider things, we're going to do a design or preliminary design. And so we're going to talk about your goals, spend some time on color combinations, highlight the different types of plants that you might consider using. And finally, there will be some tips on how to put it all down on paper so that you can get a plan in writing. So what are your goals for the garden? What's your purpose of your garden? Do you want to get up in the morning and have your first cup of coffee or tea surrounded by chirping birds, colorful flower beds, and serenity? Are you most at peace surrounded by tall trees and leaves that flutter in the breezes? Are low maintenance shrubs a fit for your lifestyle? Have you dreamed of a cottage garden with constant blooms and colors that changes with the seasons? Or are you looking for accent ideas to enhance what you already have? How about a pollinator garden? You want one of those. And then think about other features such as ponds, fountains, garden art. Do you want to have space for your family games? And finally, how much time and work do you want to commit to? Because the more elaborate and diverse your garden gets, the more maintenance and work is involved. So there are design considerations when you start planning your garden. You first want to take inventory of what you already have. And we're going to touch just a little bit on landscape design because this will help you understand where you are and where you want to go. Start by purchasing some landscape graph paper. It is a scale of 1/8 inch to 1 foot, and this is commonly used to draw landscape designs. So the grids will be in 1/8 inch scale. And in the list of resources, which is at the end of this presentation, is a website from the Spruce, an online website called How to Draw Landscape Plans on Your Own. I mean, and it's really very basic, but unless you want to employ a landscape architect, which, then that runs into a lot of money at times, you might want to consider looking at that before you start doing your design. And so just consider all these factors when you are sketching in your garden. So the first thing you want to do, and this is not my garden, this is, but it's very well done. You want to do a broad overview showing the segments of the garden to each other. It shows where the plantings are, but in this one, it doesn't define the plants. If you have fences, slopes, views, irrigation systems, go ahead and add them to your drawing. Is there something blocking the evening or morning sun? Maybe there's a big building on the west side here. You can go ahead and put that in your plan. Try to draw it to scale, so you may have to get out into your garden with a measuring tape. You may have to get your house plan so you know what the square footage of your house is. But as much as possible, try to really accurately draw the different areas of your garden. And then once you have your diagram, you can start visualizing what you want to change, remove, or add. This looks like a public building. The north side is very well developed with a lawn, a nicely planted bed, a play area, and there are nice plantings around the building. But when I look at this is where your public, first thing that your public sees. This doesn't look very appealing. It's certainly not as nicely developed as this bed. So if I were going to do a little bit of more work on this, I would kind of concentrate on these areas right in here so that you can get a person gets a nice colorful pop when they, drive down the driveway to the building. I think it can be jazzed up a bit. And then you want to go ahead and draw what you have. So this is very much pretend, but I took that public area, that driveway area that I'm going to work on, and I went, okay, these have flowering cherries, Japanese maples, rhododendrons. These are the plants that are in this area right now. I've got a building on the west side. I might put in here that I have that drip irrigation. And then I'm going to look at how much sun I have coming through here. Because for purposes of your drawing, keep the design symbols simple and focus on the scale so that you know that this plant maybe is bigger than this one. And then you would also want to consider sun, because when you start looking for plants are categorized by terms such as full sun, which is 6 hours or more a day, partial sun, 4 to 6 hours, or shade, less than 4 hours. And then once you've completed this, you have your baseline and you kind of know where you are. Now you can start thinking of where you want to go. So since this is year-round color in the garden, we're going to start with the color chart. We all know that red, yellow, and blue are the primary colors. They cannot be made by any combination of any other colors. When you combine a primary with a secondary color, you get the 3 secondary colors, which are orange, green, and violet. I'm sorry, you combine one primary with another, you get secondary colors. And then when you combine a primary with a secondary, you have a tertiary colors, and those are 6 of these. These combinations, the primary, secondary, tertiary, comprise the artist's color wheel that is used in landscape designing and painting and art and anything that involves colors. And then we also have warm colors and cool colors. Cool colors have a calming effect and make the garden look larger by appearing as though they are seen at a distance. And the cool colors include blue, violet, and white. The warmer colors, such as orange, red, and yellow, create a feeling of excitement, and they make the garden appear smaller because your eyes tend to draw to them and they appear closer than they really are. So using these colors, there are recognized color schemes: the monochromatic, analogous, complementary, and the triadic or quadratic. And we're going to go into talk about each of those separately. The monochromatic is when you're thinking about this scheme, think about going to a hardware store and looking at paint chips, because a single color forms the basis for all the shades and hues that are on that little paint strip card. The monochromatic color scheme is probably the safest scheme to use, and it can be absolutely striking. It also creates a sense of spaciousness because it's not broken up by another color. When you're creating a monochromatic color garden, start with your favorite color, and it doesn't have to be a primary color, whatever your favorite color is. And then you'll use different tints and shades of that chosen color. For example, purple gardens can include everything from pale lavender to a purple so deep that it's almost black. Yellow schemes for gardens can range from pale, buttery colored flowers to deep gold. And when you're developing a monochromatic garden, the form and texture are very important. Because the color is basically the same. So you would make sure that you had various textures, sizes, and shapes. And here is an example of a monochromatic color scheme. So you've got the little, probably an azalea down here in this red, violet color. It's a tertiary color. But then this is the same color. It's just a little bit lighter shade of the hue of which is the azalea. So this is very simple. It's very calming, and there's nothing really to distract you from these two colors. Here are a couple of other examples of monochromatic. And this is green. And I think this is so interesting to see this green color, because look at all the various hues and tints in this. And there's variety, and there's different types of foliage. There are no flowers, but it's an all green color. And this is monochromatic, very beautiful. And then here's one using the violets again. And you'll notice that this has white in it. And white is a really good color, or non-color, I should say, to add to a monochromatic color scheme. And then the next color that we'll look at is the analogous color scheme. And this expands the color wheel by using colors that are next to each other, as opposed to that monochromatic scheme that only uses shades of one color. And again, you're able to use primary, secondary, or tertiary colors. Because there isn't a lot of contrast between the three colors, they sort of blend together in a really harmonious way. Black, white, and gray can also be incorporated into any analogous color scheme. And here's an example. Oh, look at that. So you have the purple, blue, and violet color scheme here. And what, isn't that just striking? Green border. And they've got white in here. They have these little white like daisy things. So this is another example. Again, very peaceful, very calming. You just kind of feel at ease when you're with this. But the complementary color scheme is going to get a little bit more energy and excitement. It is all about contrast. One color comes from the hot side, and the other is the direct opposite on the cold side. So red and green, orange and blue, yellow and violet are complementary colors. And when they're placed next to each other, each color appears as its most vibrant and bright. And they are great. This is a great scheme for adding a pop to your garden. And then a variation on that is called the split complementary color scheme, where the dominant scheme is chosen. Let's say we choose violet, then instead of having just one color, you would use this range of colors with as a combination with the violet. So it's a combination really of a complementary and an analogous scheme. Oh, what a difference. Okay, so here's our complementary, and here's our split complementary. Look what that yellow does to this color design. It adds something to it. And then of course we've got the green and red. And I like this. I think this is a really interesting combination of tulips and euphorbia. I'm starting to really use more euphorbia in my garden. And of course, when the tulips die down, then you could do something else with this tulip area. But the euphorbias are that constant green color, which will stay throughout your season. And then our last color scheme is the triadic or the quadratic color scheme, where 3 or 4 colors that are spaced equal distance apart on the wheel. And these color schemes have strong contrast, but they maintain balance and vibrancy. They give you more colors to work with and an opportunity to use a greater variety of plants. And I'm going to guess that most of our gardens, definitely mine, looks like this. Oh man, you get excited walking down this little pathway. You don't know where to look. Do I look at the the yellow? Do I look at the shrubs? Do I look at the Japanese maples? Look, two different colors of Japanese maples, yellows, purples, reds. Oh, this is just a really a design that I like. I like lots of colors, so this really appeals to me. But you choose one that appeals to you. And then what about white? Did you notice that you don't, you've noticed that white isn't on the color fill. So you're probably wondering how it plays into these color scheme concepts. You can use white to highlight focal points at the end of the path. And there are gardens that use just white. I don't think they're particularly interesting, but I've seen gardens in England that are white gardens. So what makes the white so diverse, though, is that it brings out the true hue of any color that you pair it with. So if you place a white flower next to green, it could take on a greenish tinge. The same thing happens with yellow, pink, or blue. On its own, white would be placed in the cool color temperature category. But if it's paired with a warmer color, it can also then take on warmer tones. Well, now we get to choose plants. Maybe you've kind of decided on the color scheme that you want, but how you're going to pull that off depends on the plants that you put into your garden. We're going to talk a little bit about trees and shrubs first. Trees and shrubs can add color via flowers, foliage, berries, or bark. Foliage is a constant source of color in the garden. It holds color all season long or sometimes year-round, and it provides texture to a garden. And sometimes that color changes, of course, as the seasons change. If it's the deciduous, berries are a great way to add color in the winter. Many of our trees and shrubs have red berries. However, you can find white, pink, purple, yellow, and even black ones. They range in size from short ground cover plants to medium-sized trees. So there should be one that grows well in your garden. Many have an added benefit of providing for the birds. Although a caveat here is that birds will spread seeds from the berries, so it's important to know what the non-native invasives are of your region. And then finally, bark can add color and texture to a landscape throughout the growing season and will continue to create visual interest even into the depths of winter. And I'm going to echo what Kim said. This, and your trees and your shrubs, this is a really good opportunity to bring in native plants. Red flowering currants, the oso tree, little trees, I love those. It's the first, in the winter, I look for the oso to start leafing out, and then I know that winter's going to be over. Mahonia, big leaf maple, kinnikinick, all of these are native plants that would look good in your garden, as well as providing for the birds. So some of the native plants societies have garden sales in the spring. There is a group in Olympia that is a native plant selvage. They have offer native plants. Our own Master Gardener Plant Sale offers native plants. Conservation districts have bare root native plant sales in the early part of the year. I think they usually go on in January and February. So really think hard about adding some natives to your design. And I wanted to share this camellia here. This is from one of our master gardeners, and she took this picture in November. It's a winter blooming camellia. And there are, winter is probably the most difficult season for color, flowered colors anyway, but there are winter blooming flowers, as well as using foliage, berries, bark. And just here's some trees and shrubs. This is a native plant, a Mahonia. This is a red twig, a red osier dogwood with these beautiful red twigs in the winter. Nandina will it stays like this all year long. It's a really pretty little bush. It also has berries. Our beautiful hydrangeas. So, these are just options that you should think about as you are planning your garden. And our next category is perennials. And perennials really are the garden classics. You can grow them by themselves, or you can put them in combinations with annuals, shrubs, trees, ground covers. The majority of perennials are planted for their flowers. They tend to have short blooming periods, and they bloom at different times of the year. So they're all not going to bloom out at one time, but you can space your perennials so that you have a bloom, most of your growing season. So you do need to research that and determine when and how they grow. And then, of course, we have annuals, our classic, gorgeous annuals. They're used widely in containers and hanging baskets, but they also make excellent plant companions for perennials as they flower throughout the growing season. And you can find an annual for any color scheme you want. They're inexpensive as compared to perennials, but they're higher maintenance as they need to be watered and fertilized constantly throughout the growing season. And then think about ornamental grasses. Rather than bright, showy flowers, ornamental grasses add line, form, texture, and fluidity to a garden. Their colors are more subdued. Leaves, flowers, and stalks all have distinct ranges of colors, including a variegated foliage. The flowers can be pink, white, purple, copperas, brown. The really gorgeous thing about grasses are when the light shines through them, they're luminous, and it's just adds a very different feel and texture to the garden when you've got these beautiful grasses with light on them. And then, of course, we have ground covers. And we talked about gardens potentially taking a lot of work. And one of my favorite property of ground covers is their ability to reduce weeds and their low maintenance. They are a living mulch. They keep the ground cooler, help retain moisture. They're permeable. They allow stormwater to percolate into the soil instead of running off into storm drains. And there's no need to trim them. I mean, they truly are a really nice low maintenance plant. They can be ornamental or edible, herbaceous or woody, perennials, biennials, or annual plants. And because of these properties, they're great on slopes where they help to hold the soil in place, in borders, and in hard to mow areas. Many of the ground covers also have a bloom phase, but when the bloom is gone, you still have the foliage. And because they spread, they can connect disparate parts of the garden, and they're therefore unifying the garden. But you also want to be careful about invasives such as ivy and vinca. So make sure you know what your ground cover is before you plant it. And pictured here are Lithidora and blooming phlox, creeping phlox. Oh, they both bloom at the same time. There's different colors of them. They color different variations. And in the spring, the ground is just like beautifully colorful, and they are full of bees. Pollinators love this. And then we have bulbs. Smaller spring blooming bulbs such as crocuses, snowdrops, hyacinths, anemones will naturalize to form carpets of color. And these are your early spring. So when you're waiting for spring to come, all of a sudden these gorgeous little bulbs, these little snowdrops are so pretty. They'll pop up. And naturalizing, if you aren't familiar with the term, is a process of the bulb naturally dividing and spreading. So this makes them really great for banks, slopes, beds, and borders. And I want to show you this little bulb. This is called a nerine. And as you can see, all of the maple leaves are fallen from the trees. I took this in late November, I think right around Thanksgiving. It's a fall blooming bulb, nerine, Nerine. It's such a fun little plant. Too. And I forget about it every year. I only have 2 or 3 of them. And all of a sudden I'll walk up the driveway and go, oh my gosh, I forgot I had this beautiful pink bulb blooming in November. Your larger bulbs, such as daffodils and tulips, also naturalize, but they're striking in borders and beds. Their foliage dies back after they stop blooming, so planting them with perennials, shrubs, and annuals helps hide their maturing foliage. And bulbs such as lilies, gladiolas, and dahlias are summer blooming bulbs and are classics in a cutting garden. So you can bring those into your home and create beautiful bouquets. I've started to really enjoy allium. And this, of course, is taken at a flower show. But when the balls go to seed, they have really pretty seed head, especially these larger ones. So I planted some more allium this year. And then we have our perennial herbs. And you might think about using some of these herbs, such as rosemary, lavender, thyme, chives, oregano. They flower and they're great pollinators. You can just go out to your garden and pick fresh herbs to flavor whatever you're cooking. And number one for me, I've never had a deer trim down any of these herbs. They're really good deer repellents, or they thrive when you have deer in your garden. Now, this is a garden from one of our master gardeners, and I love the colors in this. Look, she's got purple. This color complements this bush. You've got the grasses for height, and this would be a very nice color scheme on its own. But then we have those 2 warm flowers in the middle of it, and what a difference that makes. As I said, I really like color. I like bright, pretty things, and so this is so nice to add this into their garden. So where do you start looking for ideas? Well, you go to nursery catalogs, gardening magazines, and books, and there are more than you could ever imagine. Online and social media, there are some Facebook gardening sites that I subscribe to, and I learn from them. You can go to gardens and garden shows, ask your friends, visit local nurseries, join a garden club, and of course, your most expensive option would be to hire a landscape architect. These are do-it-yourself. It's much more fun to do it yourself. And as you're learning about the different plants, keep a notebook. Write down the name, what it is, the height and width. What are the sun and shade requirements, water requirements? What's the color, and what's the source of the color? And the blooming period. And that'll help you start narrowing things down. Because at some point, you're going to want to create your own plan. And this is just really simple. I thought, it's from a book called P&W Proven Winners. And you would decide what plant you want. Let's say maybe you decided you're going to put a nice flower bed in here. You would decide what plants you want. You've researched them, you've kept a notebook, and then you would define plant A. This goes here, plant B, whatever it is, goes here. C goes here, D, you actually make your design, and then you go and plant. And then next year, you'll change it, but that's okay. That's so fun of gardening, is that nothing's ever the same, but it's always beautiful.